in traffic heading there. Hopefully be there in the next 10 minutes.
Oh, please be safe, but we're glad you can join us online in your car.
Zoom is awesome. And am I still on the agenda to give the DLI committee report tonight?
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
Am I still on the agenda to give the DLI committee report?
Yes, ma'am, you are.
All right, perfect. I'll be there.
Okay.
I'm in the document.
I'm not going to send it to you.
Oh,
Okay. Hopefully this is great.
You can analyze it for the send it to you.
Okay. Okay.
you said resend the new one?
Oh, yeah, perfect. I just have to talk to you about right. We're live, Dr. Merriweather?
Yep, we are live and recording on YouTube.
Okay, let's go ahead and start. Good evening. Welcome to Sutton Middle School's Go Team, where we will follow the agenda as it has been emailed to you and publicly noticed. I would like to remind everyone that this is a meeting of the Go Team. Only members of the team may participate in the discussion. Any members of the public present are here to quietly observe. For members of the Go Team, please identify yourself when you speak. I am pleased to call this meeting of the Sutton Middle School Go Team to order at 5:34 p.m. Our first order of business is to call roll. The secretary will now take the roll.
Dr. Merriweather?
Present.
Yes. Stephanie Holton?
Present.
Annette Sullivan? Shauna Aki?
Present.
DeMarcus Lamar?
Present.
Adrian Williams?
Present.
Antoine Edwards?
Present.
Joe Iverson?
Present.
Fran Egan?
Present.
And myself, Shirley Beaton. Present.
The team will only be able to take official action if a quorum is present. Secretary, is there a quorum present?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, our first order of business is to approve the agenda. This was provided to you and copies are here. They're on that table back there if you didn't. Are there any changes to the agenda?
Mr. Edwards, this is Fran. I think we talked about having the DLI committee report out, and I don't think I see it on the agenda.
It's on the, we like printed a new one after you said it, but so it's on the agenda.
Okay, perfect.
I don't see it on there, but it's
Thank you.
under informational items. It'll be there. All right, awesome. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion.
A second? Second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? All right, that is approved. You got that, Michelle? Okay. Next, we will review and approve the meeting minutes from our last meeting. The minutes were provided to you in an email from me. Are there any corrections that need to be made to the last meeting minutes? Okay. If there are no further corrections, may I please have a motion to approve the previous meeting's minutes?
Motion.
A second? Second. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Okay. Awesome. We do have something else that we're going to need to approve, but we're going to do that once after we have our discussion. So, All right.
Surprise.
It's a surprise. It's a surprise. It's a surprise.
Dr. Merriweather's high selection for Z24.
Don't ruin it. Don't ruin it. All right, we will now move to our discussion items on our agenda.
All right.
Dr. Merriweather, you have the floor.
All right. So, hello, everyone. I feel like it's been a minute since we've seen one another, but a pretty jam-packed agenda tonight with some key discussion items. So let's jump right in. So here we are. We are at the last stage before we before we head into our budget discussions for school year 25-26. So with that, we are now going to jump into our continuous improvement plan. Some discussion around that. So as we're checking in into our community, our continuous improvement plan, these are some questions to consider, and it is open for discussion. First question, based on our year-long continuous improvement plan, what are the actions that the school has already completed? So what you will see in red, there are ongoing actions. So it's not the necessity of what's been completed, but when we talk about personalized learning, reflection, goal setting, and target instruction, that is currently happening as we speak throughout the school year. And what data supports the completion of an action step and success criteria. So when we look at, based on what we've been doing, the real big question is it working? Do we see positive momentum? Do we see positive gains? And we're going to get into some of that data. I did put on here from walkthroughs from personalized learning, unit assessment data, student artifacts, continuous professional learning, and last but not least, the Georgia DOE data that we have. So let's take a trip down memory lane for a second. So in year 2022, this was our score for content mastery, basically analyzing if students are achieving at the necessary level at the grade level. And so in year 2022, we had a content mastery score of 69.3. Year 23, we dropped by 1.6 points where we had a score of 67.7. And so this is the year 2 of my principalship here at Sutton. And then most recently, we're at a 72.4. And so this is commendable when we talk about systems and practices that we have in place, but also getting back to our pre-pandemic phase when our kids, because ultimately we want this to be as close to 100%, but we see that upward momentum for our students demonstrating content mastery in math and ELA. So closing gaps. This basically looks at all of our subgroups and are they making improvements in their achievement rates? And so taking a trip back down memory lane, we did not have this data for year 2022, but for year 2023, we had a 61.8 when we looked at all of our subgroups and how they were achieving and meeting improvement targets with the Georgia milestones. So 61.8. We look at most recently, this last one, we jumped up double-digit gains to 84.0. And again, our subgroups are making improvements in their achievement. And so I really target this when we're being very specific into what students need instead of this generic approach to teaching. And so again, this is just the most recent data that we have. This data will continue to come out. However, so far, it is really, really looking good. The highest it's been since about 2018. So we're making some good strides. Any questions about this?
So it's beating the pre-pandemic number,
Yep.
basically?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep. So now I want to get into just a bit of a data discussion. And when we look at our fall map results, the top part, fall 24-25, that is this year, but I did a comparative when we look at it from 23-24. I wanted everyone to see all grade levels. And, you know, MAP is the assessment we're using for math and reading throughout the year. As a reminder, our kids take it 3 times a year. And so we use this as ongoing data to guide. And so what are just some of your noticings when we look at it from fall to fall?
Green is bigger, red is smaller.
Yep, that's
So
one way to
your
look
top
at it.
performers are improving and your low performers are improving.
Yep. And that is the goal. We want to punch down that red part and even the yellow part and have more of our kids falling into the green, the light green, and dark green. So we are seeing improvements. And when we look at it by cohort, so when you look at last year's data, those sixth graders who are now seventh graders this year, you can kind of see where they're performing. All right, you're fine. So what I wanted to do when we talk about subgroups, taking this a bit further and looking at this by subgroup, looking at our students with disabilities, just to put the fall data here, but seeing where those students are with exceptionalities and their performance on the map. English language learners. So of course, we see a lot of red there, but that goal is to shrink the red and grow. And again, these are students learning the English language, many of them coming to us for the first time, and so taking this assessment. And so again, our teachers are working with all of these subgroup students, basically tailoring instruction to fit their needs. Here we are, we have our Black students. We then move on to our white students. Continuing with our Hispanic students, reviewing this data. When we look at this for our students with two or more races. Look at our Asian students, and again, you look at those exams, population is very, very small, so I just want to bring everyone's attention to the number of exams reflecting the number of students per grade level. And then, of course, jumping into our DLI versus our non-DLI. And so when we look at this data of our DLI students who are proficient and our students who met their growth targets compared to their non-DLI peers. And so we see our DLI students are still performing at a rate higher than their non-DLI peers in the classroom.
But if we look at the net growth number, would that imply that even though sort of those DLI students are more proficient than non-DLI, that they're roughly growing at the same pace once they're at Sutton? Is that a accurate?
Yeah,
Okay.
basically that's a fair assessment.
Okay. Okay. So it's
the name of the game is growth. So as long as we are experiencing that growth, and when you look at it from DLI versus non-DLI, we do have some still upward trajectory and upward momentum there.
and kind of goes back to the question I think from like last go around of okay, is there some sort of potential self-selection that happens with DLI students before they get to Sutton? They're already predispositioned to sort of be higher proficiency, and segmenting that from what actually happens at Sutton on all the kids. So
that's a good point, right? So in the slide, it did have for us to discuss winter map results. Our students will take that assessment December 3rd and 4th. And so we'll be sending out communications to families per usual, just making everyone aware of when our students will be taking their winter map. And then once we have that data readily available, we'll be able to share it out. So as we just kind of jump into our data discussion, based on data, and again, we don't have to go in any particular order, but I would be curious from the GO team, anything you notice, any wonderings, any trends, or additional questions that you might have when we just kind of look at not only our map data, but our Georgia DOE data from the state as well. Because as a reminder, the map data should be a reflection, an indicator on how our students will perform on the Georgia milestones. I will say in my 8 years here at Sutton, our kids actually supersede from their scores from math. So when we look at the 3 times they're taking math, but when we get to the milestones, there is a significant difference in their performance in a positive way. And so again, just looking at the trend there that we've noticed over the years with our students when we get to the milestones. So again, anyone feel free to popcorn out, just any wonderings, noticing what you have, noticings about the data, or just additional questions.
I will say, like, I agree with what Dr. Merriweather said about like the difference in the map data versus the milestone data. Just as a teacher, I have to tell my kids all the time, hey, math is important. You have to take it serious as well. And they're like, oh, I just click anything. I'm like, can't click anything. That's how you end up in classes you're not supposed to be in. But milestone, they know that that's the test. So they put their all into that test. So we do see like varying levels of, hey, milestones up here and then math is down here, even though they're supposed to be correlated. So I do see that a lot.
And I think it's safe, we try to the best of our ability to do like a real testing environment,
Exactly.
like it's quiet, no movement, like, and like, even the teachers show. So again, when the students are seeing that as the adults are taking it seriously, they kind of fall in line. So each time we're doing this assessment, we're really just tightening it up because we do want our kids to do their best because that's how we're planning for them. That's how we're making instructional decisions using this data from the map.
I think that the celebrations that you put in place also encourage that sort of engagement. Because I feel like over the years I have seen more engagement maybe because of those celebrations, as opposed to the students just sort of, yeah.
And it's middle school. They need that encouragement, that extra push to take it seriously as part of, having the middle school years, dealing with that. So again, anything we can do on our end to be creative, to have them take it seriously, that's something we do try to push for and strive for.
I don't know if you're gonna raise it tonight, but thinking back, I believe there was a 3% growth or something we were targeting. Is there a way are we gonna see that if that's happening? Because I think that was what we were working for. It's a little bit more granular.
Yeah. So as the Georgia, so we'll get into the 3%, but as we're still getting data from the milestones, once we fully get it all, because we're getting it like piece by piece. And so the hope is once we get everything fully, we'll be able to look at more of a big picture as to how did our subgroups perform and if we did achieve our 3% increase that we are striving for.
Yeah, because I mean, if we could really get into the data, it would be interesting to see which ones of these kids are in some of these remediation classes or are getting differentiated learning, and if that's really moving the needle versus teachers versus others, just to really hone in on what's working and what's not. But I mean, I guess the positive growth is
and if I had to say, based on what we've shared as a school team with everyone, it's I can say proudly, I don't have it black and white in front of me, that 3% target is going to be met, again, as we're getting it piece by piece. Just the double-digit gains that we've seen with certain groups, I'm more than sure that, we've hit our target for 3%. It's just a matter of getting the official, data once the embargo has been lifted. So.
Yeah, because I think it sounds like we might not have it, but we're talking about budgeting and how you're spending money, and some of that money is going towards certain programs, and so understanding if you think it's working.
Yep, absolutely. And I think too, even just outside of just looking at the granular milestones, but like when we talk about remediation classes that we do have teachers teaching, I know Mr. Lamar is one and Ms. Williams, really assessing their data and looking at the movement of those kids on who they're working with. So again, can't wait till we kind of get to that discussion to really hone in on those kids.
I feel like it can be very contributed to that remediation. A lot of just receiving any additional support. A lot of theoretically versus school. I can say from what I've seen just over the years since that remediation program has been in place, we have seen it at least. And I do think a lot of it has to do with the support you all are giving to the students through that connection class. No, because even in my coaches meeting, they talk a lot about those type of support in all middle schools, because a lot of middle schools are struggling when it comes to literacy and numeracy. And so I was happy to say I feel like we're ahead of that trend when it comes to giving the students the support they need. And so, I say.
And I think that was a good point for you to make, that, offering these additional classes to support some of the data that we see. It's not anything that I feel it's not going to happen overnight, but the trends of the positive momentum and that growth is happening with the extra layer of support in literacy and numeracy that, that we're focused on. And I know more schools next year are looking to kind of replicate having remediation classes and things to offer for their kids who aren't as performing as high. So looking at the strategic plan progress, I know we've seen this a million times. So overall, from 2022 to 25, our goal was to a 5% between, this span. And again, I'm not going to read this slide by slide because it's like beating the dead horse. We've gone over it before about, supporting our subgroup students and just also school strategies that we are utilizing in the building. And again, nothing new to us as a team, things that we have seen before. So an activity and discussion item, progress that's been made towards the priorities identified in our strategic plan, and what evidence data do we have. And so when we talk about our targeted instruction, remediation and intervention, personalized learning, and so when we look at data, of course, just examining the DOE data, our MAP data, and then of course ongoing unit assessment data throughout the year. So that is data that we are able to capture to provide additional supports to students. And so with that, based on the data, are there any adjustments that might need to be made to the strategic plan? That was a question that the Go Team office wanted us to discuss. Do we need to make some tweaks, some adjustments, or do we kind of continue to perfect kind of what we have and keep building upon what we've established?
Yeah,
Music
working. Yes, and it is showing evidence of what you are currently doing. Yeah, I feel like.
I think the build on it part is important because I think the structure is great. I think even with each one of these, the targeted instruction, the remediation or the intervention, there could still be ways to push all of those things a little bit further, but I don't think the structure of what we propose needs to.
Yeah. And I think it's just really an ongoing commitment to teacher development when we talk about professional learning, making sure teachers are being equipped with tools, with strategies. We have teachers, hey, Fran, nice to join us in person.
Yes.
And when we talk about, I just lost my train of thought, Fran. Yes, teachers equipped, and we have per our budget, we have invested just money and teachers going to trainings, getting additional supports that they're able to bring back to the building, share with others, and then implement. So I think, we continue to do our collaborative walks when we're looking at personalized learning in classrooms, or looking at remediation, continuing to just, get stronger, and to your point, building on top of that.
Are the class sizes where you want them to be right now, as far as what we can afford with the budget?
And remember, we added additional teachers because we grew in numbers.
Yeah.
And so with those additional teachers, what we did, we looked at the greatest need, looking at those classes that were in the 30s, who we needed to kind of lessen. And so we were able to do that. So overall, I would say based on, the budget, our numbers, we are looking pretty good as far as class size.
I will say just subjectively, it feels like I was talking with another parent, contrasting kind of curriculum night 2 years ago when I had a sixth grader here for the first time versus this year with a sixth grader and an eighth grader here. And it seems like there's great energy and excitement and engagement among the teachers. And again, I think the data supports we're moving in the right direction, but keep doing what we're doing, keep pushing on teachers to just say, hey, give them more resources, get better. And, feels like that.
And that's important for us, teacher retention, and again, data that I don't have in here, but the highest retention we've had at site in the past 10 years. It's important to keep the great teachers. And I know I'm being recorded, I don't mind saying this as a principal, but also those teachers who are not so great and will versus skill is one thing. You're lacking the skill, but when it's a will thing and you really don't care about children, we have an obligation as a team to make sure we do what's best for kids. And in some cases, tough, difficult conversations, but much needed conversations. So I think with our hiring, our retention, we're just getting better and better by the year, and just the energy. We have people who really want to be in front of kids. And so just kind of, keeping on that momentum as well. So we kind of answer this as far as the updates.
Sorry. So before, can you go back one slide?
Yep.
So the only thing, I'm not sure if we changed it from the last meeting, and we may need to vote on it, but remember we got rid of the VAS because the district doesn't use it. So in the box where it says, the SEL support or something to that effect, I'm not sure if we updated it, but if we
Yes.
did, I think we need to vote on it since it's technically changing the document.
Yes.
Where was that?
It was under,
Reduce, so it was a third box. And so when you look under the SMART goals, we had the BAS screener. And so what we did was instead of, because we no longer use the BAS as a
Right.
district, we were looking at overall whole child. And so we look at our suspension rate. So it was a matter of decreasing that 0.30 suspension rate, whatever it was, decreasing that year by year. So the closer we can get to zero, the better off. But I also acknowledge that as a school of over 1,600 kids, we're not even at a 1% suspension rate when it comes to the behavior. And so we just changed it from BAS to focus on the suspension rate and providing supports whole child.
yeah, but I think we may need to vote.
Okay.
Just since we.
Yeah.
Change
Formally
it.
in
Yeah,
there.
to have a formal
Okay.
vote on it. So if we're ready to proceed. All right, so we have another action item. Our first action item that we need to vote on is changing the VAS, taking the VAS screener off of our school strategic plan. Can I have a motion to approve that change? Can I get a second?
I'll do the second.
All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. All right, that action item has passed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so we've already taken action on the strategic plan. And so preparing for budget development, in preparation of the 25-26 budget development, we will need to rank our strategic plan priorities using the next slide. And so, for example, I'm going to go back a bit, but when we look at the left-hand side of the yellow bar, when you look at AP strategic priorities and initiatives, I'm sorry if it's small, I just have seen this a billion times, so I just know what's there on the screen. But when we look at fostering academic excellence for all, continuing on to building a culture of student support, equipping and empowering leaders and staff, and et cetera, creating a system of school support. When it goes to the ranking of this, I literally just put them there based on the order of the screen because I feel like as a team, our focus when it comes to our budget is all of this. And it's not just we choose one and we make budget decisions based on one. So again, this was just in the order of the strategic plan that is placed on there. Now, if anyone wanted to go, move something around, that's fine. But I can say anytime we get to budget season, we look at our strategic plan in its totality to make decisions for children.
So I'm just going back to something we said a minute ago. We said that, we want to keep the strategic plan the same, that we have good support systems in place, right? We want to keep supporting that, but that we thought that in order to move the needle even more, that we needed to be equipping the teachers with more resources. So I guess I'm just only throwing that back out to see if we do feel like we should rank them just based on where we are with the strategic plan and what we feel like we need to be doing to move the needle. And I don't know the answer. It's more of a thought. If we truly believe these are all equal, or we think next year we should be putting more money towards one bucket or the other.
Yeah.
Or if you already developed it and they're all spread out, then I don't know. It's just, I don't know if anyone else questions that. But.
Yeah, I think for me, I would love the team's insight. For me, I don't necessarily go into it, and I hope it's not a bad thing, but looking at, okay, this is more important than the other, because I look at it as, the academic excellence and achievement, that's our focus for being here. And so regardless, it's a continuous cycle of us providing supports for teachers and staff, the ongoing professional learning that we have, regardless of how this is ranked. Me as a principal, I look at that doesn't change. We still are laser focused on giving our teachers what they need, even if they're teaching a remedial class or teaching a gifted class, giving them that targeted support as well. And I think when we get to budget season, it's a matter of looking at our numbers and looking, and of course we can't have $1 million going into teacher, equipping and empowering teachers, but there is, an intentional focus to make sure that we dedicated allocations for that continuous support. That makes sense.
They're all equal.
Yeah, please.
Like, they're all equal, especially with like our new teacher, the campus-based lead mentors, like with Mr. Edwards and I, we help support new teachers like every single day. So we equip, we empower, like you said, I think they just all just go hand in hand. Like, I don't look at that as being number 3 because we do this every day. Like, we have teachers, our new teachers, observing, and they may not be new, as in their first year, but new to the district, to Sutton, and we support them like crazy. Dr. Merriweather is very into that. They go into veteran teachers' classrooms to observe, and Ms. Jones was just saying today how excited and thrilled they were with what they saw today, tomorrow, Thursday. Yeah. So I just feel like this is them.
Do you think that, though, I mean, like, kind of that equipping and empowering teachers, in theory, that will sort of flow out into the other one?
Absolutely.
In a way, and
Absolutely.
And then I guess it's more of technical questions. Like I know at the elementary level, we sort of had money that we raised through the like the EREF Foundation. So we raised a pot of money, and then we would use that to do the extra things like, hey, send a teacher to a 3-day conference, and that kind of stuff like goes so far with teachers and retention, engagement, learning new tactics. Is there a place in either your budget or in PTA funds that we can say, like, look, the goal here is we should invest. So the difference between a really good teacher and a teacher who's kind of checked out and not engaged is like.
And I think the beautiful thing about that, to answer your question, yes, we have it in both. So we have not only PTA, but in our budget, we have allocated funds for this development. I'm going to put her on spot, but Ms. Jones and our instructional coach and AP, they just returned from New Orleans from a conference. And so when we talk about them coming back, being able to model and share the love and share the wealth of what they learn, just another way we talk about retention, empowering people to go out to another state, go to a conference, and bring that material back. So that's something that we're doing, and I'm getting more and more proposals.
Yeah. He even encourages teachers, like not just the coaches, but he.
Yeah, we have several
Line stuff.
teacher professional development coming up this month, next month, and in January. Local professional learning.
So you feel like you have enough money to do all of that when you just kind of Google out everything? Okay.
For the most part, and I think, to Joel's point of, when we look at bigger picture as far as like all this intertwining, I mean, in order to foster this academic excellence, we got to equip our people. We got to have people know what they're doing, knowing how to use systems. And when we talk about the targeting and instruction, getting better with that. How am I going to really give a kid what they need instead of this one size fits all approach? And so that's kind of my take on that. I even hate that we have to rank them, and I mean, I get it, but I think, at least we know when we do get our budget, we're able just to be super intentional about, just this discussion and what we're doing to make sure we're equipping teachers with the tools they need to be successful for kids.
Yeah, I guess to just reiterate what I thought, you were saying that do number 3, the rest of them kind of happen.
It's like they all go hand in hand.
Yeah.
There you go. It's like
Yeah.
a step thing.
But I understand.
Are we good with this? Are we ever, okay? So now we need to take action and turn it back over to you.
Sure. All right, so our second action item is our ranking of our strategic plan priorities. We've already had that discussion. So can I get a motion to approve our strategic plan priorities?
Motion.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay.
So where we're going at our next meeting, we'll begin discussion of the 25-26 budget. You can let myself or Mr. Edwards know of any additional information you will need for future discussion. And so as far as this piece in our agenda on discussion items, I think this lends us to, Mr. Edwards, if I'm correct, up to E, our school uniform. And so with that, I spoke with Diane Jacoby, and we had pajamas in our dress code policy. And I know you've been with Go Team, that was a whole ordeal. And so in order to reflect that of the district policy, we simply just had to remove the pajama bottoms that we had when we spoke about when we last met. So according to the policy, pajama bottoms, are allowed.
Even on non-pajama days.
I mean, again, our policy is one reflecting of that of the district and in support, of our board and understanding that we want kids learning, we want kids in classes and acknowledging, I get it. Times have changed. And so I will tell you, no student at Sutton has ever been suspended for being out of dress code or unless it's something egregious where body parts and things can be seen. But I think for the most part, we've had a great school culture and climate of just dress code.
So I can tell my kids every day is pajama day.
And parents, hey,
It's funny because I saw a kid get on the bus and say, I said, you wore that today? You have a pajama page. But I had no idea. He was actually in the right.
I just stopped sharing. Just good. And so additional discussion item, Mr. Edwards, is I guess I can just keep going through the agenda. So our DLI vacancy update. And so I guess starting from the beginning, rigorous process over the summer when we added an additional DLI class, found the best candidate. And I will tell you, DLI staffing, if you've ever sat on a DLI interview, is one of the harder positions to staff because you do want someone who not only knows the content, but the language, but also at our level, especially, there's a certain level of classroom management that needs to happen so instruction can take place. So long story short, the individual we had, there were some, and again, legally, I want to make sure I'm correct here, but with the onboarding process, there were some barriers to the onboarding process, which has been a holdup. Prior to, I guess, starting the year, we had identified a sub, and at first we did not have a Spanish-speaking sub for that class. That's like trying to find a needle in the haystack. However, we did some intentional and some rigorous digging, and we did find a Spanish-speaking sub. And so, of course, in the Go Team world, teachers, we know Miss Medina, who is our DLI ESOL coordinator, who's been working with the sub. Full transparency here, the sub had all the students' work. She was inputting the grades where somehow we could see it on the school's end, but parents couldn't see it, or when it was brought to our attention that parents couldn't see, we were able to rectify and update. So the beautiful thing about this is all the kids have grades. And so the grade book has been adjusted and updated. The class is being supported in a sense with 2 teachers because you do have the Spanish-speaking sub, who is consistent and she's here every day. And then we also have Miss Dina. And the beautiful thing, our teachers are also working with the substitute to make sure that instruction is happening and there's alignment. And so where other students who may be in non-DLI classes, for example, science, they're progressing throughout the curriculum because those teachers are sharing the resources with Miss Medina and the Spanish-speaking sub. And so that's really where we are. I got an email today stating that the individual is going to be here sooner than I expected. And so again, dealing with, and again, I don't want to be too specific here, so what I can and cannot say, but I do anticipate this individual being here before mid-December, based on what I'm being told. This is, very honest with everyone. This is a barrier when it comes to the DLI program. When we talk about staffing now, being very honest, could we have just hired for someone and that was an option? We did go to back to the drawing board and we looked at applicants, but we know what's a fit for our school. we know when students struggle, or not students, when applicants struggle with certain questions, we have to question, well, will this really meet the needs of our kids? And so my commitment and the team's commitment is not just hiring just to hire, but if you're going to hire, do it right. The kids deserve that. It's unfortunate that, this has been a barrier, but, we are dealing with it the best that we can from what we've been presented. From the GO team, many questions just about that.
Is there, once this teacher does start, is the expectation this is a long-term hire who will hopefully be?
Oh, absolutely. So the expectation is that the person will be with us, and I'm honest, we've had 100% retention rate with our DLI department. And so that's a beautiful thing, a magical thing. And so it's just a matter of once we get the individual here, we're all good, which we have been for the last X amount of years with our program. Like we haven't had to restaff. If anything, we've added, which is a bonus and a positive thing. So when that individual, Mr. Rodriguez, is here, we should be good to go.
My second question is there, I don't know if it's at the Sutton level or the district level, some better. So I have a son who's in that 8th grade class. It's probably the weakest classroom experience of his entire APS experience. Like the sub, she's just not capable to run in 8th grade. Like she's way, way, way out of her league. And it's been really frustrating for him and other fellow students. Is there a way for either Sutton or APS to develop a deeper bench of potential subs in these situations in the DLI? I mean, we've got enough DLI schools. Is it some way for us to get a deeper bench so that when this does happen again, right, that there are people? I know she's got like an Emory background, et cetera, but like she's just not up to par with being 8th grade.
And I'll be honest with you, that really would be where we as a school would ask for district level support. We wouldn't have access to the subs, like we have an entire division. And so I tell DLI families, with this program, DLI didn't pop up overnight. And so there are some things and some tweaks that can be made as we are continuing, and now it's made its way to North Atlanta High School. There's an opportunity to look at, hey, do we have a roster? With this big, and I think Dr. McKenzie, who's over our world languages and ESOL and DLI, I think that would be a good feedback to share with her. Just about, is there a way for us to kind of develop as a district for all DLI schools, as DLI is, and all the other schools within our district. And so to your point, I think that's a fascinating and brilliant idea, so that when we have subs or things happen, we have people who we can bank on. And I will say this, I don't know if I should say that, but just the quality, when we get a sub, I mean, of course, I think it's fair for everyone to say, a substitute salary is going to be different from a regular teacher salary. And so the expectation still is high for students, but in reality, knowing that there may be just a variance within delivery when you are looking at, utilizing the sub. And there's just the hard facts about it.
So what about using school resources differently? So feeling for the folks in that class that they're starting their 4th month with a sub out of your control. You plan to hire a new teacher to start day 1. And it takes over time when you realize, like, okay, I'm sure the district's telling you it's 2 more weeks. It's 2 more weeks. Like they're not telling you at the beginning of August that it's going to be December. But I guess at what point it's like, 4 weeks is too long to have a sub, or some kind of metric, and then like could Miss Medina or another resource, knowing that they have another job they're hired to do, but if there is a gap and we have limited options, like is there anybody like that inside the school that could fill that role on an interim basis?
So we don't have anyone inside the school to really fill that role. It's really just a matter of coming together as a school team and looking at creativity. Looking at, what is it that we can control within our control, and just being creative. I will tell you, I've done walks with Miss Medina in the class, just, looking at, and I have seen the actual sub teaching. I do know and acknowledge when I walk into class, kids are different. And so, but I think there's opportunity, even just as we think about the future for our program, how can we kind of create or develop something? So in any event, we're kind of in this space again. We have like an internal process that, of course, we want the district support, No, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I think the first problem is that there was a candidate put forward, I'm assuming by the district, that wasn't able to step into action day one. So I think that's at a district level, there's some accountability there. I mean, our pools.
I think the school hires.
I know the pool is the pool teacher, where's the teacher pool come from?
So there's a pool, and essentially teachers are given to the schools. Hey, these are DLI applicants. They kind of do their own kind of applicant pool for the DLI program. So as a school team, it's the district. So
But the hiring is fully.
it's full, correct.
The pool should be vetted. And so maybe we've run across a problem.
Don't put people in the pool,
Don't
maybe
put
that
people
need
in the
to be
pool.
so. Yeah.
DLI has obviously different things that may keep people from, especially if they're, I don't know where they found whoever, but from my understanding, there's just different things that needed to be vetted. And so I'm assuming, one would assume that by the time that a candidate is put forward by the district, that they are able to start day one. And so then you're interviewing and choosing the best candidate. So I think it should go back on the district to make sure, especially for DLI, since we have run across this issue, that moving forward, this isn't an issue again.
Yeah.
And I do love the idea of the sub pool, with having different criteria for that as well.
And I think that's great feedback, on the school level, because we have a team focused on, DLI hires, specifically, we wouldn't have that information, of course, as far as like visa expiration and things of that sort. It's really a matter of, hey, these are the applicants, you guys pull, interview, you make a recommendation based on interviews and performance tests. And then as a school team, that's exactly what we do. And so again, I look at this as opportunity to get stronger, to get better. Hey, there are some gaps that can probably be prevented if we were to put certain things in place, especially now that DLI is now at North Atlanta High School.
I have another idea when you said creativity, and this may be terrible, so I'm just gonna throw it out there, but what about using the sub and doubling up the class? So like my son has the Spanish language arts teacher, I think that's the class, or science, whichever one, and doubling it up and saying the sub is gonna be an aide to that teacher. If it's a long-term situation and like, hey, sorry, DLI parents, we're doubling to class size, it's temporary, but we want all students to be able to learn.
And we've done that before in the
I would
past.
say they're doing that currently, on eighth grade.
Yes.
Where Miss Dr. Gill, she has 2 classes in total. There's a substitute there, but the substitute is
Like
definitely
an
assisting, yeah.
Yeah.
And although the students are getting instruction, I mean, the only downside to that is it takes away from the purpose of the program because the teacher has to have more discourse than the students do, unfortunately.
It sounds like this heard it wasn't a crazy idea. Y'all already did. Oh,
Yeah, it's not a crazy idea. We definitely are exploring every single avenue, to sort of alleviate.
yeah.
But I definitely think that's a great, something. And luckily, we do have system for that. And so in any event that, hey, we kind of shift, we have spaces in the building where we can host. And once we kind of let the students know what's going on, they kind of fall in line. And so I appreciate you sharing that. That's something that we can take back to our, DLI leadership team as we, just try to continue to support those kids. Any other thoughts? I know on my end, as far as discussion items, the DLI vacancy, any other thoughts, ideas, or suggestions about?
I think with Go Team, only Go Team members are allowed to participate except for public comment portion.
So when we get to the public comment portion, if we don't have anyone signed up, I would be open and definitely willing to hear your comments. So allow us to get to that so we can definitely, and so I'll turn back over to you, Mr. Chair.
All right, that concludes our discussion items. We will now move on to our information item, which first is the principal report. So do you have anything on the principal?
I'm just giving it to you. I mean, Jay. In other news, cell phone policy is still working better than ever. We're seeing just great things in the building. Kids are engaging more than ever with one another. Last Friday, we just had our pep rally. I think probably the best pep rally we've had in a long time. Just an exciting time as a school community for 7th and 8th grade to get together, celebrate our sports teams, but also bond just as a family. And so we're rocking and rolling. School team, I mean, anything else I might be missing I need to hit on for the report? Am I missing anything?
I'm just gonna make a comment or ask a question about the cell phone. So, I guess they're doing some sort of fundraiser on their phones for bands.
Band and orchestra.
Yeah.
Okay.
So even outside of school, yeah, so that should be something done outside of school where a vendor came in to kind of put some type of app or something. And so that's something that we need to get with our band director.
And a couple of us out there on classes.
Oh, they're.
Oh, in other classes.
Yeah,
It's not really fundraising.
yes, that's something we definitely can come up with. Yeah, and yeah, so it shouldn't be any selling happening during the school day anyway. And so that's, we can definitely clean up and communicate. But outside of that,
They're beating the system.
yeah.
Trying to, but outside of that, I mean, I'll still like put it in my desk, you know, whether they go to band or orchestra for connections, and I walk it in there, so I just want.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, you know, per the policy, this isn't no one is policing kids for phones. You know, it's a matter of the expectation is it should be turned off and in your locker, but we don't have staff members searching for, you know, I see a print in your pocket. However, some cases it's fallen out of kids' pockets or it's gone off an alarm. And per the policy, it's confiscated. And I do share with families, you know, this policy between 10 to 2 the following day. That is the expectation, just to make sure we have environments that are distraction free. I mean, I think with this, we got it right. We're seeing some great things. And so we just keep this momentum, you know, being focused, being supportive and collaborative. I mean, I can't even tell you guys this time last year, the amount of drama from cell phones, social media, recordings happening in the building, we haven't had that. We're able to be in classrooms. We're able to focus on teaching and learning. And so my goal is to make sure we keep that going so we can impact the scores that we just reviewed.
I feel like at curriculum night, every single teacher mentioned it. It's like.
I've heard North Atlanta's looking at doing something and it would be good because our kids will be used to it.
Yep.
I'm curious on the topic of teacher vacancies and how hard it is to fill DLI. Do you have other gaps that you guys that you're trying to fill right now?
No, we're 100% staff.
Okay, awesome.
Well, 99% DLI vacancy. Well, no, technically with us, it's kind of weird gray area there. But no, all other areas, I mean, getting applicants outside of DLI is not an issue, especially this year with Atlanta Public Schools being the highest paid school district in the state. I get emails every day, every week with teachers, you know, in other surrounding areas. Hey, I want to come to Sutton. I want to come teach. This is my resume. And so the mere fact that I'm getting that, I just put it in a folder. So we do have a vacancy. We can kind of have like a starting point. But again, teacher increases and raises, it was a game changer. And we have people beating down our doors trying to get in our district. And honestly, specifically Sutton, you know, when someone emails and says, hey, I've heard great things about Sutton. I've looked up this, or I have a friend or whatever. It makes me smile because the word is getting out there, and we just want to keep this word. And I think our numbers show it. You know, over 1,600 students and still enrolling. That people are leaving private, leaving charter, and they're giving Sutton a try. The new Sutton is what I call it. The new Sutton. So we're doing as a team. You know, we're doing some good stuff. This isn't a Dr. Merriweather thing. This is a team effort. It's a team project, what I call it. And I think we're doing a phenomenal job as a team.
Our next information item is Ms. Egan's gonna talk to us about the DLI committee and their progress.
And I made a presentation. Am I allowed to share it on my screen, or I also emailed it to you while we were here? If I click share, it says host is disabled.
I think it's just a matter of, and I didn't know you had a presentation, so apologies about that. I think it's a matter of giving you co-host rights.
Wayne, you want me to get the fog machine out right now, or?
Yeah.
Or is that? Okay, go.
Like fantasy.
So you should have sharing access
Yes.
right now. Yep.
I normally use PowerPoint at work, so I use Google Slides too. But with perfect. So I wanted to start off well, actually, this came up in our meeting in August, I think, maybe the first one of the year. And it was a task to kind of come back to you all and share the work that we've done. So that's the point of this report out. So wanted to kind of take a step back for folks who may not be as familiar with DLI. Just that it's in the North Atlanta cluster. The goal is to graduate with a seal of biliteracy and an IB bilingual diploma. And our program in APS is 50-50, which means half of their instruction is Spanish, half in English. And it varies by grade level, what courses they have, but it always includes a Spanish literacy class. In elementary, it's math and science with reinforcement in social studies. At Sutton, it's based on Dr. Merriweather was sharing how hard it is to hire, but I think they've got to find somebody qualified in that discipline as well as Spanish language. So here it's either science or social studies, as well as an advanced Spanish language art. And it's been really cool to incorporate into electives. So there's media literacy and visual arts that are in Spanish. And then currently it's in North Atlanta High School only for 9th grade, and they've got to take biology and either AP Spanish or level 4 Spanish. So when they graduate from Sutton, they kind of qualify based on their scores to either AP or level 4. So the North Atlanta Cluster Program began in fall 2015. So those current 9th graders are the oldest, and they were in 2 classes there, only from E Rivers and Garden Hills. The next year, Bolton, Brandon, and Smith all joined. And families have to apply to a lottery. So, it was a big thing to get in. I think Brandon almost had enough for 4 classes. They had so only half the people got in because there's 2 classes and they switch halfway through the day. It prioritizes native Spanish speaking students. And after 1st grade, you cannot join unless you have been in the DLI program or are a native speaker. So really exciting that this year, the first DLI cohort at North Atlanta, and in 2028 will be the first graduate. So this is kind of why families are interested in DLI. It's that cross-cultural training, bilingualism, and as we saw even in the scores Dr. Merriweather shared earlier, it's this academic achievement that we see in the students. So really interesting is why did DLI start in the North Atlanta cluster? Over 50% of APS English language learners are in the North Atlanta cluster. So if you look, it's very hard to read that chart, but that's North Atlanta with the one going all the way past everybody else. So by far, our cluster just is the most diverse and has those Spanish speakers. 16% of our cluster students are current or former English language learners. And the DLI program was really partly invested in to help close the achievement gaps of that subgroup. And of course, it aligns really well with the IB mission about building global students with intercultural understanding. So who are the students at Sutton? 21% of students in Sutton overall are current or former English learners. You guys have probably heard that I think North Atlanta our cluster is the most diverse. It's really like close to a third of Hispanic, Black, and white or other. So really cool that 21% of Sutton students are current or former English language learners, and of those, 89% were Spanish. It's identified as their primary language. So all this to say, it's a really great fit. A little over a quarter of Sutton students are now part of the DLI program. The World Languages Department helped me with this data. But 40% of the program includes current or former English language learners, and about half are Hispanic or Latino, which is the goal of the program. The ideal is 50-50, Hispanic and non-Hispanic, so that the groups are learning from each other. And
Good question. That 26%, is that where we think it's going to hold? I mean, I don't understand like the trajectory of where we think DLI is
so now
going.
it's in every class, every grade level at Sutton. So I think this is about, I don't
No, I
know.
know, but like,
Do you mean like our elementary schools growing?
No, or do we think they're growing how many kids they're going to have in the program? Or do we think roughly 75% of the students in our cluster at middle school and high school are always going to be non-DLI, and 25 roughly are going to be DLI? Like, is this where we're holding, or is there some greater plan for this to grow?
So that's a good question. I'll have to ask. I'm not sure. And I think this is just for Sutton. So I would think elementary is even greater because there are always kids who don't go to Sutton. from elementary. So I know from our own DLI experiences in elementary, some kids have left, for private school.
I think at E-Rivers, it used to be that there was this like massive demand. Now it's like kind of at this place where it's about equal match between English and Spanish, and every kid that wants to get in can get into it. So it seems like it's equalized in terms of time.
So 40% of Sutton CLI are current or former English learners, 47% are Spanish speakers, all that. So back in February of 24, we had a charter to establish the DLI ad hoc committee with 3 goals. Understand DLI Spanish math, reading map scoring ranges and competencies, benchmark Sutton Spanish reading map scores against subgroups and compare them, and then identify outliers and propose potential remediation solutions. So this was like an official charter document. These were our 3 goals. In our first meeting with APS World Languages, they advised us that the metric should really be stamp assessment, not Spanish math, because that's another test our DLI students take. And it looks at 4 areas: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And that's really their gauge of Spanish language proficiency. So these are all the folks. We have had several meetings. So I've been the Go Team representative. Miss Medina joined from Sutton, Dr. McKenzie and her team. Miss Pedro Arena was the science teacher here before she got hired to the district.
Sorry, can you go back one slide? I thought the point when you guys said map, it was so that we could compare DLI to non-DLI.
It was
So how do you compare stamp to non-DLI?
the Spanish map only the DLI students take. So it was to gauge how they are performing in Spanish.
Okay, not how they're performing
Relative
in
to
that subject against non-DLI.
Yeah.
It's just a
Yep.
closed.
Exactly. It was the
data set.
Spanish proficiency to
Okay.
say how are we harming any of the DLI students? Are they not learning all they can because they don't have enough grasp of the language to have the content in Spanish?
But how do you know how they would have performed had they not gotten it?
So the Spanish proficiency, just seeing are they understanding enough of the language so
Okay.
that if you're taking science in Spanish, do you have the Spanish skills that you should be successful? So this was how we outlined it, and these were this is kind of how we framed our discussions. So we've got we've had parent stakeholders from all the feeder schools. Megan Watkins and Kendall are here tonight. So quickly, our ad hoc committee findings. We looked at the stamp assessment and with APS targets. Spanish proficiency is below where APS would like it to be. They do have very aggressive goals to meet that biliteracy diploma goal. Our stamp scores have seen a decline year over year. But as Dr. Merriweather highlighted, the Sutton DLI students perform above school average. So they do very well on the areas where we can compare them. Although I recall we did look at science milestones, which is to, I think, Mr. Lamar's point, there's so many different tests. There's milestones, there's stamped for these kids. But we have seen declining science milestones that could potentially be correlated. We don't know, but these DLI students do get their content in Spanish. So quickly to show you guys the data, blue is met the target, red is did not. Listening, reading, speaking, and writing. It's hard to see, but it's roughly, you can tell, it's 53%, then 47, 42, 49, roughly 50% for all grades. And then we've got it broken out for each grade. So again, red does not meet the APS target. So a lot of red for the 7th graders, the 6th graders, a lot more blue met. And then I think we don't have the data for all 3 grades because there was not enough of the 8th graders when they looked at this. That group was too small.
Is there a moment where students can't move beyond any further in DLI? Because let's just take high school, for example. There is a moment where even if you were in, say, advanced, you may not continue in advanced if you aren't showing proficiency. So is there, like, at what point are you marching along and you're just not able to either keep up, you're not able to learn, and you're getting into high school content that you aren't in the program? anymore. Is that a thing?
Yeah, I don't know. Dr. Merriweather, do you know?
Or you're
That
just
is-
in it, you're in, so you don't.
Yeah.
That's not a thing. That's not, because it is an optional choice that families have to either opt in or opt out.
But there's nothing coming from the school that's saying you're not qualified.
Right. That is not, I mean, where we get policy from downtown, I mean, I don't know if the school would even have the autonomy to make the decision to remove a kid, if that, but I think that's something worth digging into.
This is an optional program.
And I think another challenge DLI has is as Spanish speakers move here, I think they join that program pretty much, or they're encouraged or automatically join, and they come at all different levels as well. So they could be like their first time in the United States from another country. So we don't know where their baseline is, and they're part of DLI. So there's a lot of, yeah.
And just on that point, are you able to look specifically at a kid who started kindergarten DLI all the way through versus a kid who showed up in fifth grade, maybe from another country, and maybe they're already way behind in that. And so it looks like they're dragging down our math score.
That is the problem.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
There's not-
Our Spanish
They're not, they're all there
They're
together.
all lumped in.
And the majority are actually the ones who did not start. They are just coming
Yeah.
from another country and they don't speak English.
Yeah.
So I can believe those scores.
Yeah.
And I think that's the heart of the DLI challenge, is it's a hodgepodge of people. Some kids who've been in it since kindergarten,
Yeah.
some kids moved here from a Spanish speaking country.
They need to understand those baselines, because if you don't understand where a kid's coming in, it's one thing if they start.
Yeah.
And in our district, but if they've got to get that baseline, because that data does matter. And that might be a subgroup.
And I think those English, and they're all part of that English language learner subgroup that, I think is an area where we have a lot of room for improvement. So I think this program is really designed to help those kids and, have them in this smaller group where they're getting more specialized attention. So this map comparison really reinforces what Dr. Merriweather shared earlier, just that DLI is performing compared to non-DLI higher. And then here from the map, this is from our science report that was shared out at an earlier go-to meeting. But again, I think DLI is better, but I think we have some declining performance year over year. That's okay. So you can see where we've gone from. This is the Georgia milestones. So from 22 to 23 to 24, the red bar is getting bigger. DLI could be a contributor here because those kids learn science and Spanish.
It's interesting though, just gonna throw this out there, that look at that physical science. And I know the only kids that could take that class were advanced children. And there are very, very few that didn't do well in that class. So it starts to set up subgroups. Those are your advanced kids that are just killing it down there. And then, I don't know who's the other, the other groups.
Yeah, it's, I guess, everyone who gets to.
Right? I mean, I don't know if I'm right.
No,
You
you're-
had to that wasn't offered.
Correct, because it was only 150 students,
Yeah.
From that took the actual high school physical science, because it is so much math heavy, so it's
Yeah.
absolutely at the ball.
So, just to kind of wrap up where we are with the DLI committee, of those three goals, understand the DLI scoring, Spanish scoring metrics and competencies. We've done that with the stamp assessment. Benchmark how we're doing against the expected competencies. About 50% of students are achieving those targets. So the third thing, sorry, I don't know why it's coming off, was identify outliers and propose potential remediation solutions. So that's really where our committee was. I know in our initial conversation with Mr. Vance during the meeting, you all really wanted us to think about what can the school do versus the APS, and kind of, do we have ideas for the school, and are there ways that APS World Languages Department could also help, maybe things like a substitute pool and, closer partnerships, things like that. So any questions? We kind of paused our committee meetings while we came together here to bring you all the report. There's not an easy thing. I don't think there's like one easy thing to do either, but I think there's some ideas of low, no cost things.
What's next on what did you guys pull out of the most important thing to focus on, or any ideas that you're starting to?
So we really were just starting that, and then back in August, I felt like we needed, based on what I was hearing in the meetings, we gotta take a pause until we come back and present. So we have not got together this year, really.
I think understanding some of those subgroups within and some of this data that we're pulling up, like really understanding how the different subgroups are performing within would help, because I think a lot of things are said as like a blanket statement, and it's probably way more complicated than that. And I think when you're trying to have an ad hoc committee, it needs to drill down into that granular level in order to really decide to invest in something. Do you agree with that, or you?
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. I think it's hard because there's few kids in each grade. And as we start looking at subgroups, we run like for almost the entire group of ninth graders, it's too small. Because it was only 2 feeder schools. So like APS was like, I can't even give you the scores they got on the science last year because it's too. So it's hard, I guess, when you're already at only whatever 26% of the school and getting by grade and then by subgroup, we run into challenges with, I guess, data privacy and what they're allowed to share with us. But I think, I guess, as a invested DLI parent and understanding the challenges the school has, understanding the budget challenges at APS, I think APS should give all DLI schools more money because it's an additional program that has to be run with, staffing, specialized teachers. I don't feel like that's going to happen, especially as they're looking to cut costs in the district, hearing that we're over budget. So I think having a group of like the educational staff and parents come together and say, what are there things that we could do to help support this program? I think is worth continuing.
Yeah, I mean, as a non-DLI parent, I think, I'm trying to look at it really objectively, and right now we're not getting money for DLI. So then to go back and ask for money and resources that are very limited, that are supposed to go towards other things, it's taking, like, there are a lot of things we do that benefit the entire community. And so if you remove some of those to benefit a small group, which it's 25% of the school, it's just, you have to think about what you're taking away that's not benefiting all. Like, I think with some of the remediation things we're doing, we can see how that benefits a cross section of the needle on everything. I mean, I understand the need.
But I advocate that we need to hire a staff. I think some of the ideas we had are like, could we do more cultural things? Could we have more Spanish books? Could we have a language lab that they go to that maybe one of the Spanish teachers is helping for remediation? So things like that. But we didn't get to the point of saying, here's something.
I wonder how many of those go through the PTA or whatever would be willing to support, because a lot of what you just described sounds like the types of things that are typically supported by the larger community, and the books and the cultural events and things. And I don't know, I think you're right that APS needs to give more money towards it, but until that happens, I don't know that you can reallocate funds from within the school budget. I don't know. I don't know what the rules are.
There's just a lot of things that I don't think we're thought about.
Yeah.
This is what you see now.
I feel like they were building the houses every
Yeah.
day. They're still building it.
And so the
That's
goal
just
is
a guinea pig.
probably is to not make it maybe more complicated, but to, again, what is going to be the best for the entire school as a result of DLI. And so being more simplistic almost because of budgeting and thinking more realistic in terms of what can we do? What's one thing we can do?
Well, and just to underscore what you're saying, when I look at, our budget, our school and the program, to your point, you're right, we don't have any additional funds for it. And so I know at our most recent parent university focus on DLI. There are some things in the works being planned for cultural field trips, cultural experiences, things that we can do that's very kind of low cost and things that we can kind of give our students that experience. And so I look at this as we talk about personalized learning, that should be taking place for DLI students as well. Things that we're already doing in the building, if we know there's a need based on language proficiency, it's a matter of replicating that and making sure it's done in DLI, but also giving our kids these experiences, partnering with other schools, having pen pals with other students who are DLI students, maybe in a school out of the state. So when we talk about strengthening the program, those are just low cost things and ideas that I just think about something we could do like that. And I know PTA, we have a super, super supportive PTA, but the reality of it is those funds go to so many different pockets within the school. And so when we talk about sustainability over the years, I just worry about if we say, hey, we're going to do a language lab, but then PTA says, hey, our money didn't come in 1 year as we looked at it, then now that's not sustainable because those are all just like projections when it comes to funds. So for me, I think it's best we continue to look at those kind of low-hanging fruit is what I call it. And we look at, what can we do in Atlanta? What can we do internally in the school to really kind of support the development of the program if and when we get additional funds?
And I know like some things that have come out from our conversations is Ms. Medina has introduced like a joint planning period for all the DLI grades, whereas before they were separated. Maybe 8th grade playing together and 7th grade, and now the DLI group has some dedicated planning time together. So I think there's not all cost options, but there are things that like, if you start talking about it with the right people in the room and some different, ideas, that it's like, oh, we could do that. And that's just something I can ask Dr. Merriweather. And he said, yes. So we now have a monthly scheduling meeting together or planning meeting together. And I think closer linkage between feeder schools to here that help better prepare for the set experience too. Some of those things.
And I definitely think this is something perhaps at the school level that we are taking on. And the reality of it is it's a partnership with district leadership as well. So when we think about strengthening the program, we can come up with ideas, but I'm thinking about the other 5 elementary schools. Where's the partnership with these schools? So we talk about their DLI program, our DLI program, giving kids the opportunity to really, just be immersed in the culture and the language. I just think there's so much opportunity that really takes collaboration with the school and the district with a limited amount of funds.
I wonder down the road too, I don't know how far you guys are gonna dig into this, but in partnership with the other schools, you try to get an audience with the district and
Dr.
share.
McKenzie, world languages is very much a partner. You meet like the superintendent. Yeah, I did go to the superintendent meeting for the North Atlantic.
Yeah,
made a point about a lot of parents spoke about DLI, and his response was really, there's things that are on fire in the district, and North Atlantic clusters was not one of them in any area. Is what I took away from it. That is my own perspective. So I think he's working on shoring up some other areas that he feels like
which back to even at the Sutton level, there are, when you're thinking and all the stuff that we're trying to deal with, it's just.
But this is not, I think having a group of involved parents and educators thinking how can we make the program better is not taking away from anything.
It's not.
I mean, a little bit of a crazy idea, but what if you got like a couple kids from kids and teachers from elementary, middle school, and then some high school, and you did like a flower workshop day where you just sort of said, I don't know, it could be an interesting exercise in terms of seeing the full picture of what's working, what's not working, what can we get better. I mean, you get a lot of kids to be honest.
And I will say, as we think about ideas and develop them, Sutton is a unique school when we talk about the dual campus, so many students. So it's like, like this, what do you call it? Like the hayfield or the corn maze, because it's a lot of moving parts that make our school run. So anything that deviates really from our original schedule really has to be super, super well thought out. And I'm just thinking about, to your point of like a language lab, the space, what does that look like? The management, the organization, and then how is it replicated throughout each grade level? And so I think, it's room for opportunity. It's just a matter of what will work and what won't, to be honest with you. But, I think to the superintendent's point, of, there are some more pressing needs to kind of echo Dr. Johnson, in our building wide. Academically, and some DLI parents may not want to hear this, but our DLI students, according to the data, they're doing fine. It's just a matter of us trying to smooth out how can we continue to grow. And that's really it. And I think we're limited. Our hands are tied. And I don't want to stress us out. It's just a matter of building this plan as we're flying. I mean, those are the cards we were dealt. But I would love to, hear more ideas as they kind of surface to the level on how we can do, just workshops or being creative. And that's really is going to have us being creative without looking to use a whole bunch of money and what that will look like. So I'm open to seeing what that looks like for our kids.
Perfect. So it's not a closed group. So I'll share it with everybody here when we have our next meeting, and anybody's welcome, or you can send me any ideas you might have.
What time do you guys meet? I think like one time we had like a 7 o'clock meeting.
Yeah, we really try to work around like the APS employees.
Yeah. And I would say as a school team, I think I can speak for everyone, like, getting here so early. I know that time, starting at 7 after already, having a full day, it is a chill.
And I think it was because they wanted to get home is why we did that. Because it was like either like I'm gonna be stuck at school then for 2 hours, or I could drive home and start later.
Gotcha.
So, but yes, usually we ask Miss Medina and like Dr. McKenzie, like, what time is good? We can do lunch. We can do your planning period. We can do the evening.
Yeah. And I'll circle back with Miss Medina as we're like planning field trips and things, just thinking about, because again, I want our kids to be out of the building, immersed in the language. So we should be having communication come out to families, soon about just some school level things that's going to happen, like DLI specific field trips. So there's opportunity for us to do that.
Can you remind me if you guys are working with anyone at the high school, parents at the high school, or in the theater school?
So one of our committee members, Megan's got a 9th grader. So she's been a good link between, and so she's been through the Sutton program that's out there.
All right, now we are at the announcements portion. Does anyone have any announcements? My only announcement is to make sure that all GO team members completed their training for the GO team to be in compliance. You can find your trainings in Ellis, and if you're not sure if you did them, you can email me and I'll find out.
Quick question, if I had done it already for a good team before, the lunch about to redo it after the whole.
I think they expire after a certain amount of time. I think it's 2 years. Maybe.
I'll follow.
You could, yeah.
I'll check on it. I'll check on everybody. I'll check on it. Okay, next we are, if there's no other announcements, we're at the public comment portion. Sorry to read.
Somebody asked me how to sign up for public comment and I couldn't find it. So
we'll make sure it's posted on, it'll be on our GO team website.
It should be a hyper.
Yeah, but I'll double check that it's working out of this there.
yeah.
But if someone wants to make public comment, just to reiterate it, they must sign up 24 hours in advance of the meeting to do so. Each speaker will get 2 minutes unless approved for more time by the GO team chair. And GO team members should not respond during the public comment period. The public comment period is designed to gain input from the public, not for immediate responses by the GO team to the public comment presented. The GO team should listen attentively to all comments and take all summation of the comments into consideration. And then I'm not sure if both of you want to be. Okay, I guess. We'll just listen. We have 2 minutes, but we'll be within. We're not gonna cut you right off. That's okay.
Great evening. My name is Cozy Walker, and I'm a field coordinator with Redefine Ed Atlanta. Nobody got excited. Okay.
I'll respond.
So I just wanted to let you all know that we are in support of you all and what our mission is at Redefine Ed Atlanta. Dedicated to engaging communities, advocating for equity, and funding critical work to drive systematic improvement in K-12 public education for students and families in Atlanta.
What do you have, DLI?
So that may be something we definitely could talk with, about, because again, we want to be in support of, different activities, right? So, just wanted to let you know that we want to engage with you all in the community. I was on the, Zoom once before, Dr. Merriweather. I told you I wanted to go in the community with you all. So that's why I was so determined to get here to do my in-person hi. And so North District is my, district. And so I'll be a part of different events and things that you all have. I do want to get to know the PTA and things of that nature. So again, redefine it and be of assistance and know how we could help. I am a parent in APS. My last little girl, she's at college now. She's, so I've always been dedicated to, this work and to the community and to our kids. So I'm really excited to be a part of this and to learn. And I'm hoping to copy the right cats. I love how Dr. Merriweather always says to duplicate, dislocate. And so that's what we're hoping, that all the great work you all are doing, that we can, mimic some of it, right? Take it back. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
And then we have another.
My name is Kim. I am a DLI parent, and my comment revolves around us challenging us to look at DLI as a way to help the Hispanic and the ESOL subgroups. If we go back to the strategic priorities, it says to increase our academics by 5%. Is that correct? And when you look at the subgroups that you put on the board, the Hispanics and the ESOL were the ones that had the most red. So really, you know, I know DLI parents are very vocal, and there's one group of DLI parents that are very vocal, but there are a lot of DLI parents that are very vocal, but also for the parents that are not vocal, including those ESOL and Hispanic students. So I think we just need to think about DLI in some of those ways to help those students too, and not just the parents who are the most vocal, including myself, but all of the DLI parents, because I think some of that is low-hanging fruit for those Hispanic and ESOL kids. I'm not sure exactly how we can do that, but I feel like there's a lot of opportunity there. And to your point, actually, the district does have a committee that has parents in every feeder school, and APS and students. Only 2 students applied for it last year, so hopefully maybe next year more students will apply for it. But I think having those students also engage in the conversation, I think they'll have lots of ideas. But again, I really think we need to use DLI as one way to help that subgroup of Hispanic students in creative ways. Thank you.
Can I have 2 minutes of my lunch? Or next?
Yeah, I think, yeah, I don't, not in the same way. You can just talk.
Okay, sorry. I tried to put it to you, I might have missed the link, so I apologize for following the rules on that. My name is Megan Watkins. I have a 9th grader in DLI, and then a younger son, 5th grader in DLI, and a 12th grader at North Atlanta too. There is they're aware of the substitute for substitute pool that's been brought up before with them, so I know they're actively working on that. So that's something that hopefully we'll see some progress there with soon. Again, just to piggyback what Kim said, I think DLI can be looked at as a way to benefit the whole, aside from, I feel like there's so many great things about APS. That's one that will kind of, feather in the cap for APS. I've talked to a lot of parents who are staying within APS because of DLI. So we just feel like there are a lot of benefits and ways in a relatively inexpensive way to build DLI and make it yet another great thing about APS. The high school, once you get into high school, it's split for the first time into honors and on-level courses. The biology for the first time ever. We've got 2 routes with that. And then obviously with AP Spanish or Spanish 4. So we should, after this year, at least another year, probably have some better data about how the subgroups break into that. So just something to look out for. We are working actively, as Kim said, with the central office. We have multiple committees with students on them as well. If you all have any subgroup data, possibly about how parent engagement increases with DLI, like the elementary school, we'd love any of that, because we're going to make some efforts to try to educate board members more on the potential, on the benefits of DLI. So if y'all have anything we can use that, that's great. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody who spoke, for public comment. We're at the end of this evening. I forgot, I'll make sure I put your presentation on the Go Team, website too, so we can also go back to that. All right, we have reached the end of our agenda. Is there any additional business at this time? All right, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Motion. May I have a second?
Okay. Sorry, we're fighting a second. We're ready to go.
Sorry, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And, anybody saying nay? No. All right, and it is 7:02. Meeting is adjourned.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Stephanie,
guys.
y'all joining online.
Megan and Sean, have you guys met each other before? I don't think so.
Bye, nice to meet you too.
Megan is an attorney by trade.
Oh, we're enjoying this.